And welcome into Cosmic Koolaid. I am Corey Short. This is episode 13, and in the booth with me today we have actor extraordinaire, Mr. Dave MacDonald. How you doing, Dave?
Great, man. Corey. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here, sir. I've been watching your work for quite some time, and had the privilege of being your neighbor briefly and making friends and keeping in touch since then. And I'm certainly glad to have you here, and you got a lot to be proud of, man.
Well, you used to see me. Remember, I'd come off the porch. I'd either be wearing a suit or I'd be off to an audition or something, and I'd be, or I finally booked something, and I remember a couple of times. Yeah, It was cool.
Yeah, it was exciting then, and way more exciting now. You really got some good stuff working, and so I guess let's just dive right into that, man. How did acting begin for you? Was it a childhood thing? Tell me about that.
I grew up in Chagrin Falls, Ohio, small town in Ohio, and we had a theater program, and but I was a wrestler and a football player, but I liked it. And talent shows, I would go do stuff, or if there was a school play, I might audition. But I was usually wrestling or playing football. And one year, I got hurt wrestling, and I was out for a while. And the drama teacher at the school said, "Hey, Dave, you should do duet acting. This is for the debate team." Now, I did not have great grades, and like when you're on the debate team, you were smart. Like those are smart kids. And he was like, well, "There's this duet acting thing where you and another actor put up a scene, and then the judges will judge your scene, and you move forward whether you go to regionals, state, or whatever." And I was like, "Okay, So we did this scene from True West. I did it with a guy named Fred Van Lente, who is now a really big comic book artist, but he was like a little guy. He had glasses, and then I play a character of his older, rough brother. And so we did the scene from True West, and we started competing, and we did really well at at some of the local stuff.
Yeah.
And so then we make it to districts, and then we won. And then we made it to regionals. And then we won again, and then we went to state. And so I had done sports all my life and had some success, but we didn't have great sport teams. We generally were smaller, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm winning these acting competitions, or doing well at least. And I remember when they announced, I was in my homeroom, and the homeroom, there was one of the science teachers. And I'm sitting there, and they announced, they go, "Hey, congratulations to Fred Van Lente and Dave MacDonald. They're on their way to state with the debate team." I remember the science teacher looking at me going, "What? What?" Like he literally thought it was a joke. And, so for me, it was, I think acting for the first time provided me with a sense of pride, because again, I didn't have the greatest grades. I didn't think I was, terribly smart. But I was doing something that people appreciated. I wasn't getting hit. I didn't have to hit anybody, if it was football or something. And it was a form of communication. Like I was able to emote and communicate, and my parents had been divorced, and I had a stepfather, and we didn't get along very well. And there was a lot of, tension in the house. And so I found this thing where I could express myself. And so that got kind of planted in my brain. However, my real dad had been a Green Beret, and I grew up with his Green Beret and stories and stuff. And so I was like, I'm gonna go to the military. I'm gonna be a soldier. So I had these two things happening where I was like, but wait a minute, you're kind of good at this too. You could do this. But that military train was already kind of on its way. But at the last minute, I saw Good Morning Vietnam, that movie with Robin Williams, where he plays a character named Adrian Cronauer, who's a broadcast journalist in the Air Force in Vietnam. And I thought, there's no way that there's a job in the military like that. And so I went to the recruiter, because I'd been talking to him, and I said, "Hey, is there like a job where you do radio and TV and stuff?" He's like, "I don't think so." And then he called me back. He's like, "There is. 46 Romeo, broadcast journalist. They send you to Fort Benjamin Harrison, Indiana, which is closed now, and they train you in radio and television journalism, but you have to audition for it." And so I was like, okay. So the Army sent me a script. And back then, this is like in the 89 or so, you was really no way to record that stuff, but like a tape deck or something. However, remember the high schools had those radio shows they would do in the morning?
Yep.
So they had the studios. And so my high school had this little radio studio where you could record stuff like this, similar, with a lot more basic. And I kind of read over the script, but I didn't know what I was doing. And I read the script, and we made a little tape, and he sent it off to the Defense Information School. And then I got word that I passed the audition. And so I went through the process and took my tests and did well on the test. And then I was downtown Cleveland where you're processing. And it was funny because I get up there and I walk in and all the Army guys see me. And I was a linebacker and a wrestler. And they look at it and they go, broadcast journalist. They're like, I mean, they have quotas. They have like Ranger quotas and they have other quotas. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they come back and they go, hey, man, got some bad news for you. You're colorblind. So I don't think this MOS is going to work for you. But we got some other ones you'll be perfect for. And I, for like the first time in my life, I said, nah, something. You know what, guys? I got offended. And I said, let me just take a minute. So I walked out, and the Air Force is in the same building. And I went to the Air Force, and I said, all my stuff is down there. I scored this on the test. I passed this. I did this. And they're telling me I can't become a broadcast journalist because I'm colorblind. I go, can you guys make me a broadcast journalist? And the Air Force guy said, yep. So he called down there to the Army guys, and he said, hey, I got MacDonald up here. Send his stuff up. He's going to go Air Force. And he hung up the phone, and then the phone rings back in about 2 minutes. And the Army guys go, hey, we got him a waiver. You got him a waiver. And I wanted to go Army. I kind of regret that at this, we were just talking about it. Like Air Force wouldn't have been a bad gig. A guy that I knew in the Air Force had a radio show in Greece on the beach. Basically, he would do his radio show, then he would go sit on the beach. Right, it was the life. So anyways, I ended up going to the Army and then went through the process. And it was crazy. It was a great school. Adrian Cronauer did a lecture there. He taught at the Defense Information School. And they had radio, TV stations set up and radio stations. And you learned how to create content for the men and women overseas. And then we worked at different networks all over the world. I worked primarily in Berlin, Germany at the American Forces Network right after the wall came down. And it was great. It was great.
So then you came back here and started pursuing, when your military time was done, you immediately looked for an agent, or like how did that process play out?
No, I had, I knew I wanted to, because, you're in the military, and if you're doing well, they'll try to keep you. And they try to sweeten the pot, and they like offer you all sorts of stuff. And I had a decision to make. It was a good job. It was a great job. And I had to decide to like let go of that security. I did, but I didn't have I wasn't completely confident, especially I'd been in Chagrin Falls, Ohio, joined the military. I'm in small units. Like I hadn't been exposed to the real world really yet. And so, but I made a decision to get out of the Army, and my sister was living in Los Angeles. So I thought, I'm going to go to Los Angeles and I'm going to pursue this. And I ended up driving across the country after I got back from Berlin, went to LA, and then saw this giant like city that seemed impossible to navigate. I had the GI Bill, and they offered to pay for my school, and eventually they offered to pay for Loyola Marymount University for their theater program, which was like $30,000 a year or something. And so I thought, well, look, I wasn't even supposed to go to college, let alone like graduate. So I just said, maybe I need to focus on getting through school, because I'll never do both. I won't be able to pursue the acting and graduate. So I just pursued university and did a bunch of great shows, received an education, did really well, and then got out and went up to, I was outside of Hollywood, and then moved into Hollywood, and still, it just seemed impossible. There's so many people there, and there's so much going on. And back then, Hollywood was not a nice place. Like in the freaking, early 90s or 90s, it was a mean place. Like the whole Me Too, that thing hadn't happened yet.
Right.
People, man, it was a rough place. And I got to a point where I thought, well, this doesn't seem possible, or not even possible. It doesn't seem like something I want to pursue. And during that time, I was becoming more spiritual in a sense. I converted to Catholicism at Loyola Marymount, specifically in a class, because there's all these moments like where Jesus would go out to the desert for 40 days, or like all these different saints or theologians would, Saint Benedict lived in a cave for 3 years. I'm like, man, why shouldn't that should be a requirement, like where we have to go away for 30 days of silence. And the teacher was like, well, maybe you should do that, Mr. MacDonald, maybe you should go and do that. So I started visiting monasteries too. So I had these two things happening. Like I'm basically in the entertainment space and thinking of doing that while I'm visiting monasteries, going, man, this wouldn't be a bad life either, to like be able to contemplate these things and live a simple life.
Yeah.
And a couple of different times, I would drive out of Venice Beach, and I would drive up into the high desert to a monastery, a Benedictine monastery. It was beautiful, and it was like remote and incredible and peaceful and silent. And I would spend a couple days up there, and the monks would kind of be moving around. They're all, scholars and stuff. Although there were some young monks there, and once I caught them in the back doing nunchucks. Like they were like 22-year-old monks, and they were like doing what young boys.
Right.
And it was hilarious. You're like, but then I would get in my car, and I would drive back into Venice Beach, and you would start to see dysfunction. You'd start to see like how they designed the city crazy and how ugly the buildings were, and you'd see people in pain or like fragmented, and so I was seeing these two things, dramatically back and forth, like pursue fame and the entertainment business and all that comes with it, or go and live a simple, silent life. And then I went to one monastery in Snowmass, Colorado, where a lot of the monks, they're Trappists, but a lot of them are mystics. It's very silent in a beautiful, remote valley right up beneath the mountains. And I went out there, and one of my primary jobs, they gave me a magnet on a rope, and I walked in this huge field, and I would pick up nails because they would lease the field to farmers. And so I would spend hours of total silence. Click, oh, click, you get it. And I thought, I like this. I really like it, And then I'd go back to Los Angeles. And so that happened for a long time. And I battled it. Eventually found my way out of LA because my mom got sick in Asheville. I came into Asheville, and I fell in love with it. And I thought, oh, you can have a life here. Like people, there's art, there's artistic people here, and there's a quality of life here. Because having a family in LA definitely seemed impossible. Houses are $1 million or some crazy, like affording a family and having, it just didn't. Then all of a sudden you come to Asheville, maybe not now, but back then, and you're like, you can do this, you can have a life here. And so I ended up meeting my wife, Anya, my wife, and
You met her here?
I met her right, and we're not together anymore, but at a yoga booth, and she had a 6-month-old baby with her, and so here I am out of LA, Hollywood. I come here, and then before I know it, we're dating, and falling in love with her and falling in love with the baby, with Roman, and we end up getting married, and I ended up adopting Roman, and LA just was gone.
Did you have anything promising in Hollywood that you walked away from?
I would say, I was in a really great acting school, and I was doing really well. The teacher's really renowned, and I had every indication that I stuck on that path, which, because it really is about forging relationships there with casting and with different people, and that comes back to pay dividends. It's so like now that's part of my problem now is like I don't have a lot of deep relationships in Los Angeles casting. So unless I'm perfect for something, they're probably going to side to the person they've known for 10 years or more. But so yeah, I was starting to. It was fun, you know. But I did that crazy thing, you know. I was lying by the beach at night, and I asked God. I said, because I was again vacillating between these two lives. I said, use me for good. Just you know, I don't not quite sure what I want to be in this world or but I want to do good things. I want to be good, and so just you know do whatever. And like after saying that, everything I basically got kicked out of Los Angeles, like energetically. And it's like I put that intention out there, thinking that you know I didn't know what was going to happen. It was like bam, I was kicked out of Los Angeles, and then I'm a dad. I thought, oh, okay, so which did save me, by the way. I mean, my son grounded me and allowed me to live like an authentic life, which I don't know if I would have, because pursuing this is, you know, having a child, it just financially, it's really rough. And so I was kind of kicked out of there after that, you know. And so I did some stuff here. I did local stuff here. I did a couple local films. I did some plays. And then I was like trying to let it go in many ways, but it kept kind of coming back, like, because it was a skill set I had. And one point we had friends over, and the guy was like, yeah, I'm auditioning for the show on TV. I'm like, wow, really? And he's like, yeah, everything's moved to Atlanta. The whole industry's like, a ton of stuff's happening. I go, and yeah, you just audition, you can put it on tape. You just videotape it. I'm like, what? I had started a little video company at the time. I was doing legal videos, documentaries and stuff. And I thought, oh man, really? And so I looked into it. I called an agent, sent her my stuff, and one thing led to another. And I started shooting auditions. And then I started kind of booking right away. And it was industrials and small stuff and then bigger stuff. And before I knew it, I had way more like optimism here, and I could see a pathway here clearly that I could not see in Los Angeles.
Has there been any lulls in that action other than COVID?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like right now is a devastating time in the industry right now. It's basically paralyzed. And I think there's a couple of reasons. COVID probably, but also, you know, I think they strayed from storytelling, and the people got really interested in activism or political activism, and you really play with fire when you do that in stories, because people are smart and they hear the stuff on the political or the news level, like they hear it. We see Facebook stuff, and a lot of times they want to go to movies to fall in it and to escape it, like Top Gun, right? Things, or even we were talking about Jesus Revolution.
Yeah.
Like people want to go and they want to like feel good, you know. They don't want a lecture. They don't want things forced on them. And if you do that, you alienate people. And I think we're going through a big phase of that right now.
What a great time in life for Cocaine Bear. I mean, we need that movie right now. Matt on my last episode just said that. He's like, we need that movie right now.
Well, that's
just a mindless entertainment, you know?
That's the lesson of that movie. Because it was up against Ant-Man.
Yeah.
And Ant-Man's a $250 million movie.
Yeah.
And so I hope people are seeing that in powerful people in the industry. I don't know how, I don't know if they'll be able to pivot, because, you know, that's a lot of this stuff is in the pipeline for years. So it's coming out. You saw they canceled Batgirl. Like they had that done. Yeah. They said, nope. So something's happening, and a lot of people are suffering for it. Like the writers are suffering, the crew members are suffering, because I think at one point we had over 100 pilots. And remember, this is like tens of thousands of jobs. And now there's 12 being shot in LA. So there's almost zero auditions right now. Totally quiet. And someone like me that's a working actor, it's pretty much game over for a while, you know. And so I work at a nonprofit. I work with folks with autism and traumatic brain injuries. And so I just work like 40 hours a week. I work with people. And to me, it's, you know, there's such purpose in that work, and I love it. So I'm lucky.
100%.
Yeah, and I have some flexibility there too.
Yeah.
But you definitely have to, I'm in a period now of, and this probably people can, relate to this. I have to reorganize my optimism, if that's the way to put it. Like I used to be really optimistic. Like a year ago, 2 years ago, Ozark comes out and all those shows come out. I was recurring on 3 different shows at once. My schedule was busy. There was no part of me that was like, oh, this isn't gonna continue. This is going to like turn into bigger and bigger stuff. My management was the same way. Everybody was like, here we go. And then nothing, and you hear these stories. I mean, Jason Bateman went through this before he got Arrested Development. Like he was like, thought he was gonna have to go sell cars or something. And he was Jason Bateman. Right. So I think a lot of this, and again, it relates to also anyone that's going through this now. It's for me, I'm in a period of time where I don't want to lose the optimism, but I have to be open to opportunities. And for me, I was been thinking about going on a silent retreat, some where I can listen and pray about it and get some direction, but know that, okay, just like I made that declaration, like I want to do good in the world. It's like I want to stay optimistic. I want to stay positive. Help me.
Right. Man, I'm way too ADD or something for one of those silent retreats.
Yeah.
Like Aaron Rodgers just did the dark retreat for 3 days. Yeah, I couldn't do that. There's no way. I'd go crazy.
Well, so I was at that monastery in the Rocky Mountains, and I was sharing a room with a guy, and I'm having a ball. There's like a visiting Jesuit priest who's also a Zen master, and he's hosting a retreat. So people are sitting all day long in silence, and they invite me to come sit. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. And I'm sitting there. I'm in the abbot of the monastery's in there. He's looking at me, and they're waiting, and I'm just like, this is the. And they're like, so it was funny because they were like, Dave, let's, they try to, they say, hey, you please come here, like, but they don't pressure you at all, because the monastic life is a vocation. It's like a job you're called to. You can't force that. Like, and this is so. But it's funny because the monks were like, "Hey, let me show you the hermitages," because I loved it. So they were like, they had these little cabins off in the middle of, and they were totally cool to me. I'm like, that would be amazing. The guy I'm with, this poor guy, like after the first day, he's like, dude, he's like, what? How are you taking this? And I go, I like it. It's nice. And he's like, I can't handle it. I'm like, well, what's going on? He's like, it's just my own voices, like my own mind. That guy was out of there in 2 days. He was supposed to stay like a week or something. And he was like, I can't. It was the minute that he was confronted with silence, he heard what his self-talk, he had no distractions from the crap that was operating subconsciously. And so when you enter into that silence, that comes up, and that's what you hear. And if you have never sat and you don't know what that is, and then you start hearing it. Now I look, and I think I'm just simple. Like when I'm in silence, I'm like, I don't have any profound negative thoughts that come up. It's kind of like I got a nail, like because I'm picking up nails with a magnet, and wow, this is amazing. I don't know. I had a feeling of being grateful, and I don't. Again, I think that's an advantage I have. Is like it's just my constitution, So.
All right, folks. This is episode 13. I got Dave MacDonald in the booth. We're going to take our first break. I'm Corey Short. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Cosmic Koolaid. I'm your host, Corey Short. I got Dave MacDonald in the booth with me today. He is a friend and a professional actor, acting in such roles or such shows rather, as Ozark, which is a big show with Jason Bateman and Laura Linney. Tell me about how that came to be and your experience with that show.
Well, we got an audition. I remember it well because COVID had kind of broke, and so the industry was weird, but we were still getting auditions, but they really needed you kind of local, and so I'm trying to put it together because I did Loki too, and Loki was an interesting job. I had like one line, but I was always with Tom Hiddleston, and so I was there for a long time on that shoot, and then COVID came and that shut that shoot down, and then we were off work for a year, and then it started up again. And that's when these auditions started coming because Loki was ending. And then I get this audition for Ozark, and I got two. I got one for security at the casino. And so I did that. And then I got this other one for this kind of Blackwater mercenary guy. And I did that. And I remember my buddies were there, like a local actor, Matt Burke. And so we did it. And I remember the scene. I take their phones in the underguard garage. I take their phones, and the Javi doesn't give me his phone. And so I remember in the audition, I had this bucket, and so I take Jason's phone, which is played by Matt in this audition, and I take it and it clunks into the thing because you can just hear it in the audition. You can't see the bucket, and then I go to the next guy, and there's no clunk because he's not. And so then he gives it to me. Boom, and then I throw it down real hard. So it's funny. It was a cool audition because it's little moments like that can win you a job.
Yeah.
Like they don't see the bucket, but they hear it. They hear the first phone goes in nicely, and then he waits a little too long. And so I get this phone call. First of all, I'm sleeping. I go to bed early, like a week later, and I wake up, and there's these 2 or 3 phone calls from my manager and agent that I missed that night because I went to bed at like 10 o'clock or something. And I call them. I have to wait because I'm up at like 5 in the morning, but I can't call them until like 9. So I have to wait 4 hours. And then I call them. I go, what's going on? And they're like, oh my God, you got it. You got the job, the Ozark job. And I was like, holy shit. And I remember I didn't know because the Loki job was, I just had one line, and I thought it was going to be bigger than it was, and I thought, oh man, I hope it's not the same kind of thing, where I'm just kind of. And then I started reading the sides I would get, and I thought, wait a minute, I'm actually interacting with them all the time. I'm always and I'm a huge fan of Julia Garner, like Ruth, right? Like that's a funny thing with this job, this business. Like I'm a fan, like when I did Stranger Things. I did the flamethrower guy and Stranger Things. I was a giant fan. Like I go, God, why can't I be on a show? I would fantasize about being on shows like that. And then I'm on the show and I'm sitting with those people, like Paul Reiser. I'm talking to Paul Reiser out with our chairs.
Mad about you.
Right. So for me, this is, and it's still that way. And then, I really got a huge case of it when I'm meeting Jason Bateman and those guys. Cause I've been a fan like for all my whole life, and you're sitting there and you're about to do a scene with them. They've won all the SAG Awards, Emmys. Like these are the top actors, right. There's not a hint of fakeness when they act, and you've got to look them in the eyes. And I've got to intimidate them. I'm sitting here one-on-one with Julia Garner. Basically a huge fan of her, like just totally, fan of her acting, and. So we get, I get the booking, and I remember the first day, I'm in the car with everybody. We do this like kind of a scene, and Jason's like, "Oh hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Hi." I don't know. Actually, we're in the car. It's Jason, me, and Julia Garner, and the other guy that plays the mob boss's son. Really awesome dude. So we're sitting in the car.
So you and Jason haven't spoken yet until you're in the car for the scene?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so we're sitting in the car, and I have to drive this car. It's a brand new Range Rover. Dude, I have a Camry. I don't even know how to start it. Like I'm like, Jason, you know, so first I introduced myself, but so we're sitting in the car and I go, it's all quiet. And I go, hey guys, because Julia's in the back and Jason's in this next. I go, I just want to say, I'm really excited to be here right now with you guys. And blah, blah, blah. And they're like, they start laughing. And Jason's like, yeah, you're here for a while, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And I could look back and Julia was smiling and they were so sweet. They were so great. And that was the way it was the whole shoot. And then we ended up shooting the scene. And then I would just come back. You know, we did several different scenes. And, you know, I had a day with Laura Linney where I got to like, you know, look at her and talk to her. And I just was in heaven, man. And everybody was incredible. Jason is just as funny, like on set as he is like on camera. He's a funny guy. And
so they recreated all those lake scenes in Atlanta?
yeah, what's that lake up there?
The Ozark, isn't it?
Yeah, but no, the lake right up outside of LA.
Oh,
Atlanta.
Oh, I don't know. Outside of Atlanta.
I do know. I'm just nervous now. But yeah, that's where they do. Oh, because when I go to Ruth's her campers, there's a scene where I go and she's on the roof. I mean, again, huge fan of the show. And I used to see them like hanging out on their campers by the lake, and I thought, man, that'd be nice. You know, like to me, that's like heaven. And then you show up on set, and there it is. They have the campers all set up. That's Ruth's. That's the Langmore Peninsula. Yeah. And you're on it, and you're like doing a scene. And
is it like public domain there when they're not filming?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise people would, you know, probably take stuff from it, you know. But the funny, you know, so Nelson, the hitman in Ozark, remember Nelson? He plays the cartel hitman.
Yeah.
So I met Nelson doing Creepshow. So the remake of Creepshow. I play a guy named Talby, and he plays a guy, Sergeant Quist. And we're World War II soldiers that are fighting these Nazis in the woods, and we run into an old farmhouse, and there's a woman there that's locked in this prison, and we get surrounded by these Nazis. And so it turns out the woman is a werewolf. And I make the decision, like, well, we're not getting out of here because they're going to come get us in this, you know. But there's one thing we can do to maybe, you know, beat these guys, and that's to become werewolves ourselves. So I have the woman bite us. But before that, Nelson, who plays Sergeant Quist, freaks out and locks us in the jail with her and takes off. And so we turn into werewolves and fight the Nazis. And then at the end of the show, I go after Quist and find him. And I end up killing him as a werewolf. And then now I'm in Ozark with him. And he plays the hitman for the cartel, and I'm playing kind of a hitman for the pharmaceutical, from the pharmaceutical company. And so we always thought that was funny, you know, because I remember seeing him at the audition for Creepshow.
Yeah. So is Ozark the biggest thing to date? Is that your most? I
think so. And Mr. Mercedes, the Stephen King one, was good. I mean, as a character goes, and like Harry Treadaway is a great actor, and Brendan Gleeson's in that.
Hold that thought for a second. We're gonna play a quick clip from Mr. Mercedes. Check it out. And we're back. So tell me about that, man. How was that working on that show? Did you get to meet Stephen King? Was he on set? Was there anything like that?
He was not. It was based on his novel, and my character is not in the novel. So they added my character, and they were really concerned about it because they wanted to add in that element of like, I guess, toxic masculinity, and whatever that means. Sure. But they wanted to add an element of that, and so they kind of and so the script writer was there, who's actually a great writer, and he was on set, and so they were really happy. Jack Bender was a director. He directed Game of Thrones. He directed the Holdor episode. Like a really great director. Real tough. Like, man, you better know your stuff or you're in trouble. And so that was a really intense job for me. But I was really prepared. I felt great. It's so funny acting a lot. It's like anything in life, man. You fake it until you make it. You just act like you're, fake that you're, that you got this and you're confident. And, preparation obviously helps. But I remember that job. I was like, man, you cannot let on that you're nervous or, because they're paying you to do a job, Yep. And so that really helped set me up for Ozark and the other shows, because Jack he's a great artist, so he's and literally an artist, so he's visual, and like it's got to be right, and so you didn't have a whole lot of room to not be believable, or to be nervous or something like that. It's just not going to work. So that helped me. Like I performed and got through that, and he was really, like you did a great job. And when a guy like that compliments you,
sure,
you go, okay, I must know what I'm doing a little bit, So,
how often do you see a director venture away from his original vision on a set? Like, I mean, obviously he is paid to tell the story from his brain, the way his brain sees it.
Yeah.
How often do you see them taking creative liberties and changing things on the spot?
Well, not often, partly because things are scripted out and like there's money involved.
And they're paid for every set, everything.
Basically paid for, so you got to be somewhat careful. It does happen, though, if you're working with like Joaquin Phoenix and somebody on Joker or something like that. I heard they filmed a whole bunch of stuff and were like, nope. And then they went back and redid it. And like, you've got to have a certain budget. You got to have a certain relationship between the actors and the director. Jason and Ozark, they would change words all the time, or like, hey, let's say it this way, or let's do it this way. Or we had the punch where I had to punch them. And like they wanted to go for something like I didn't even care. Like I knew he wasn't going to shoot me, and it was supposed to be kind of a sloppy, like, give me the freaking gun. So we are like making all that kind of stuff up as we're going.
So let's say Jason says to the director, hey, let's say it this way. What if you come out, the lower guy on the totem pole, and say that? Is the director like, fuck off, little man, that's not happening? Or how does that play out?
You have to be so careful, Yeah, there's definitely a hierarchy, and everyone knows it. Like, a guy like Jason earns the right. Plus, he's also directed. Like if Jason says, I want to change it, you change it. But a part of it is like understanding that one of the directors I worked with was like, he's a renowned director. Again, Game of Thrones, all this stuff. The balls you have to question his vision. Like, at some point you have to be like, man, come on now. If you've earned that right because you've done a ton of stuff. But I'm super humble when I'm there on the set. I'm listening, I'm learning. That's basically what my job is to do my job and then learn, because it's a privilege to be there in front. It's a privilege to be working with those people.
Sure.
And so you're just listening, basically. And I think if you have some, I had some feedback about the punch or this and that, and they would listen to me to some degree, but at the end of the day, at that level, you're working with the best. And, so you're really careful
sure
with what you're suggesting.
So you've done some other cool stuff. You've done not Narcos.
No.
You've done House of Cards.
Yeah. I did that a while ago.
You would fit in perfectly on Narcos, by the way. You need to tell your agent to reach out.
Yeah, there's a bunch of... House of Cards was cool. I played a Navy SEAL. I got to spend the day with Robin Wright. And all the other guys in the scene with me were real Navy SEALs. They were combat SEALs. But they put me in front to escort the guy.
Sure.
And they put me on camera because it's funny, in the military, I anchored the news. I looked like G.I. Joe when I was young, it's like, these guys were real SEALs. And, they were the real deal, man. And I'm still friends with one of the guys. Social media, we were always, back and forth. But
so I saw on your Facebook recently that you had posted somewhere where you were working with that really really smoking hot guy, we'll call him.
Oh, the mugshot felon.
The mugshot felon guy,
Jeremy,
the criminal that all the girls were going crazy over. We're going to put that up on the screen here.
Jeremy Meeks.
Yeah, tell me about that cat. How'd that happen?
We shot this in Louisville, Kentucky, not long ago. Which Louisville, Kentucky is amazing, by the way. That's super fun. It's going to be on BET. It's a cool show. Most of the cast, I think, it was mostly African-American cast.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the only, white guys really on the set or whatever. And it was incredible, man. People were so amazing. And my character was a cop, but he wasn't a bad cop. He was a good cop, which was nice.
Do you get tired of playing cops?
No. I mean, come on, look at me. What am I going to do? I'm either going to play hitmen, soldiers, or cops.
I keep waiting on you to be the new the new partner to Mariska Hargitay, but
What's that for the
SVU.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, those shows are amazing because they go for like 20 years. But the dance for me was great, and then I met Jeremy. He's so cool, man. That guy would fit right in Nashville. Like he's a bit of a hippy dippy dude. Like he's like all about kombucha, and we had great talks, man. Lots of great talks. He's been through a ton of stuff, man. He has seen. I mean, guy went to jail. You know, I think his dad's been in jail for murders and stuff, and he's he had a baby with a billionaire heiress. So he's walked the billionaire lifestyle. He's seen it. Can you imagine that? Like he's seen those two worlds intimately, and maybe he's super, but he was still incredibly grounded, incredibly kind guy. Like we got on the electric scooters and we were going all over Louisville, and then a friend of mine who's a professor at UNCA, Renuka, we were talking about Thomas Merton, who's a famous Trappist monk, and there's a really great monastery in Louisville, a Trappist monastery, and he is a famous writer, Thomas Merton. He wrote poetry. He was an anti-war guy. He was friends with Bob Dylan and all those folks, and he lived in a hermitage outside the monastery in Louisville. But he had this famous corner in Louisville where he had this kind of mystical moment where he realized we were all connected and that we were basically a big family, spiritual family, and so it's marked in Louisville with this monument. And I had read about it all the time because I read all of his books. And I was like, I need to go find this. And so Jeremy and I were going over lines, and I go, Jeremy, let's go find this thing. And he's like, yeah, let's go. So we jumped on those little electric scooters you buy, and we cruised all around, and then we got to the streets, and there it was. And so you see the picture on Instagram. We're standing in front of the monument, we're smiling. So that's the kind of guy he is. Like, we went out and we found that and had lunch and stuff, and he's awesome.
Who's your biggest inspiration acting today?
Funny. I always think of this. It's so I love Daniel Day-Lewis.
Fantastic answer.
I do. Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Denzel Washington is right up there with his. These are masters of the craft. Anthony Hopkins.
Have you ever been able to work with any of them on any level?
No. That would be incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you never know. I don't want to, you don't want to
sure
disappoint myself, but yeah, that would be incredible. Daniel Day retired. Daniel Day-Lewis retired from acting. And for me, it was their ability to totally encompass a character, totally transform. It's, that to me is, maybe, part of this is, you grow up and maybe you're in a stressful environment or something, and you're used to kind of escaping one way or another, and then acting becomes the ultimate escape. You can actually become a different character for a while and explore that. So, and those guys.
Do you find any of those method acting practices to be silly?
Well,
I know you got to answer this carefully for any counterparts that are watching, but
I think, the characters I get, which are sometimes rough dudes, dangerous guys, whatever, it would be hard for me to play those guys if I hadn't played semi-pro football. I played for Berlin for a year against monsters. I played Army rugby in Berlin against monsters, highly violent games, like, regular fights. I kickboxed forever. So when I play a guy that's going to act, he's going to punt, beat somebody up, or he's tough, or he's that, I don't really have to do that. I've experienced it, But if you're someone that like hasn't done those things, like say you're like a theater guy and you've got to play a professional boxer who's vicious, but you've never really been in a fight. You hardly have ever trained. Like that's a long distance to go to understand that guy. Maybe if I had to play a guy that was a total pacifist and like, maybe that would be interesting for me to try to shed, because you're making choices when you act, and a lot of those choices are based upon your experience. Like people, right? People like, so if you don't know how to fight and somebody comes up and does something to you, fighting isn't going to be the top option. That's going to be the last option. You're going to have all these other choices you're going to make. before you're going to go there. But if you're like a jiu-jitsu black belt and you fought a million times and somebody is trying to aggress, that might be your first option. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're an actor and you're playing a guy that doesn't, you have to rearrange those options according to your character.
There's actually there's a funny script there. Like I could see you totally, you had a life of these tough roles, and then in your real life you're like Pauly Shore.
Right. You're trying
around all loosey goosey.
Right. And people are saying things to you and you don't know how to react. So I understand the method acting if you think you're really far away from your character, and you might have to try to make up for some of those experiences.
Gotcha.
But
I can't even wrap my mind around it. Like I worked on one movie. I had one scene in one movie, a local independent film, and the main actor in this scene, he just had the most, to me, unusual process of getting ready for his part. And so what the hell is he doing? That don't make no sense, but to each their own,
Yeah, it's safer to bring a lot of yourself to your roles. Yeah. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis is, he's unusual and extraordinary in what he does, but he's all encompassing. It's why he retired. So,
do you see Johnny Depp anywhere close to his level? No.
No, I don't think any. I think most actors, when they watch, There Will Be Blood, Gangs of New York, all the stuff he's done, Lincoln, you're seeing something different. And then you hear about his level of commitment, because it may not be possible to do that without having it become so almost neurologically comfortable, to where like you're in that character so naturally that it radiates in the performance. But
it's funny you bring up those two, because Last of the Mohicans is maybe one of the best movies of all time. Certainly one of my favorites of all time, but his acting in that doesn't come anywhere close to the two that you mean. He's just on a different level.
He kind of gains, but then he retired.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a price. I think you pay a price if you perform at that intensity. And then other people can just play themselves, and they do well, Jason Statham.
What did you think of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker?
I liked it. I thought it was good.
I think it was a masterclass in a mental health film. I don't think it was a Batman film.
No, and what's so interesting to me about the Joker, and this goes back to the monastic stuff, because the Joker is ultimately about an individual who comes to a crossroads in life and says, "I'm going to burn it all fucking down. I'm going to burn everything down." And we know, and those people exist. Maybe they're not as extreme as that Joker, but they're on that spectrum. Like, that's a behavior, and that is a response or a choice. But then I know guys that come to that crossroads. You can go out to a monastery in Wyoming right now, in the wilderness. They have a waiting room to get into this monastery. It's a Carmelite cloistered monastery for men. And they're ranchers. They wear cowboy hats and their robes. They ranch. They're building their own stone Gothic French monastery out of stone. They bought a stone cutting machine for over $100,000. They probably got donated. They took a year to learn how to operate it, and now they've been cutting their own stone, and they're putting together this stone monastery in the wilderness. And they live lives of prayer and work. And they could have been jokers. They were no different than him.
Yeah.
They just chose, instead of hurting people and burning it all down or destroying themselves, they've moved into an environment where they can focus on something deeper and less destructive. So I would love to someday to see a film where we counter this kind of, we don't want to romanticize the Joker.
Yeah. Because
the Joker is a moment that we all might reach, and you can choose to become him, or you can make another choice. And if you don't know about the other people that make the other choice, and I'm talking about extreme choice, right? Because becoming a monk is the extreme on the spectrum, just like the Joker is the extreme on the spectrum. We all fall somewhere in between. But if we're gonna make movies about extremes, I would love to see a film about taking the extreme where you basically you don't destroy everything. As a matter of fact, you defeat that impulse, right? In an extreme way. You just reject it, and you do it by going into the wilderness and living a simple life of prayer and, peace. It's because that's true. That's a real story.
Yeah. And it's funny how we have our own perceptions of those different places and darknesses in life, and how they look to all of us differently in our own perception of them. And I think that movie does a really good job of.
Oh, it does a great job.
Just paints that picture so well.
Yeah.
Really told that story well.
Yeah. And by the way, like I said, it makes it real. I mean, this is a real thing that we have to be careful of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to the sequel. I think that should have been a one and done masterpiece. Now they're going to make it a Batman series, and I like the way it was just a mental health movie. But
because generally characters like that destroy themselves.
But Lady Gaga's that's of interest.
Oh, is she in it?
She's the crazy one, the crazy Batman girl.
Yeah.
Jared Leto's,
I know you're talking. Yeah.
I just can't remember the character's name, but of course I'll watch it. But it'd be hard to top that first one. Yeah. So we are going to take another short break. Come back talking all things Dave MacDonald. I'm Corey Short. We'll be right back.
In 2023, lines will be crossed, champions will be determined, and legends will be made. HVW once again sets the stage for great professional wrestling in Western North Carolina, bringing the best talent together for the Showdown Series at Silverados. Featuring TJ Boss, Jada, Stone, Reno, Royce, Luca, Daniels, Marcus, Erics, Michael, King, and King Enterprise. The bar and standard in professional wrestling has always been high in North Carolina. This year, High Velocity Wrestling takes that into the atmosphere. It's the Showdown Series at Silverados.
And welcome back to Cosmic Koolaid. I'm your host, Corey Short. Again, we got Mr. Dave MacDonald in here talking about his career as an actor, his time in Hollywood and coming to Asheville, and a bunch of fun stuff. So really, I'm thankful for you for taking your time to be on here and fill us in on all things. There's a growing number of people paying attention to you every day.
Oh, yeah.
And so I certainly appreciate you coming on, man. It means a lot, but not as much as the time that you actually acted for me.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to take a minute to show my audience a clip of that from the Rory Kelly Crown video that I wrote, produced, directed, and Dave was gracious enough to take my pauper's pay that I was able to pay him and come act in my music video. And y'all take a look. And there you have it. That was at a time where Dave really had no business accepting such a small role. His career had just started to take off. And I just want you to know what that meant to me, man.
Wow, that's great, man.
That was really cool. Now I'm working, with some bigger players in the game, and we're trying to write a script and make a movie. And I really hope that we can work together on that. But,
great.
Those things take time, and we're seeing if we can put it together. But let's do a quick rapid fire session on some hot topics right now, and just give me your thoughts on them. We'll bust through this section pretty quick. Jake Paul.
I watched the fight. Interesting, right? Content, celebrity influence is changing rapidly. Hollywood is against the ropes a little bit because they were always the owners of that currency. And so I'm watching all that stuff really carefully. I'm older. I would want to make sure what I was emulating was positive because you're going to regret that as you get older.
Sure.
And so, but fascinating to watch.
You can almost see him maturing as he goes. Like we're watching him grow up in front of us.
Dare I mention Andrew Tate on this podcast?
Absolutely.
He the same thing happened, and he's an interesting one to study his trajectory because it started as trolling online and saying really dumb stuff early in him and his brother were goofing around.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're huge.
Yeah.
And you can't take back what you said.
No.
And so that is a great lesson. And I, it's not like I fault him for that because this is all new for all of us.
Do you think that he's going to get out of jail? Do you think that's going to, how do you see that playing out?
Man, it's scary to watch.
Yeah.
From what I understand, haven't been any charges filed, and people are saying that some of the people involved are saying they're not victims, and would be interesting to watch. But I think, what we're seeing is individuals that become incredibly influential outside of the system.
Yeah.
And then that's scary to people that used to control that trajectory of someone, because he's incredibly powerful, the influence he has. And so I think we should watch it really carefully.
So I started watching his stuff like maybe a month ago.
Who?
Andrew Tate.
Oh.
I didn't know anything about it. So I was kind of, okay.
Yeah.
And, there's every time I feel like he's making a good point, and he's really giving us some good stuff. And I'm like, okay, this guy's, then he drops some shit that, how am I going to let my daughter hear that and be okay with it?
Well, that's it. I mean, I don't, that's what I mean. I'm looking at him as like a study, because you see, like, you don't get to take back what you say. Yeah. And this is a lesson for everybody. This you're permanent. When you start making content and you're going to make shock content because it's getting you clicks, and then all of a sudden you grow up and you want to say something that's more mature, you're in trouble. Like, you can't take it.
That is one very, very specific reason why this show is pre-recorded.
Yep. But you're also not chasing clicks. And so he was chasing clicks. But this lesson, that's what I mean. Like, no, look at Andrew Tate, study him, everybody, male and female, because he was just a goofball that was saying some stuff and getting clicks, and never dreamed that he would become this influential. But he's hamstrung he didn't have to come and start doing what he was, saying the stuff he did early on. And so, for me, I'm way more partial to someone like David Goggins, who is like, says something similar to Andrew Tate, but it's really directed at you, the individual. Yeah. It's not directed at, other people. And I think that, for me, especially if I start to create content, my own content, you got to study these guys and see like what's the lessons to be learned there, including like Jake Paul or folks like that, because you can learn like, oh, I've got to be really careful about what I'm saying, not because I'm afraid of being canceled, but because I want to put a positive message into the world that's timeless and I don't have to be embarrassed about in 5 years, So you have to be careful.
All right, rapid fire 2, artificial intelligence. Give me your thoughts.
Well, man, crazy. I just got into the what is it, GPT?
ChatGPT, yeah.
Incredible. Really cool. Think about stories. I mean, here people are writing books with it and like putting them on Amazon and selling AI books.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's interesting in a sense because if you've got writer's block or if you, I've got to use it more because it isn't. I had that discussion with it about God I told you about, and it was like, no, and so we were going back and forth, and it was forcing me to be reasonable and logical because that's the language it speaks, and it doesn't let you get away with being silly. And so that was really fun. I bet you could do that with philosophy too, or maybe you have a personal problem and you put it in there and you look for solutions to maybe some of your problems, you'll probably get a really logical suggestion. And so I would hope that that's where we go, but obviously it could go in all sorts of directions. So we'll see.
Border security.
Why are you asking me these?
No, rapid fire. Let's go. Border security.
Well, I mean, I think that, we have locks on our doors, and we have, I do have my concerns about our country fragmenting for sure. And I think, as a storyteller, which is an ancient tradition, and the shamanic part of that, the shamans would tell stories to teach lessons to the community or to heal something that happened. And they were generally used to unify. You're trying to unify a group of people because to fragment back then was death. Like you wouldn't survive. And so here we are in a country that is, by definition, a group of people that have to be unified to some degree, or otherwise you don't have a country. And so in our country, it would be the Constitution, the Bill of Rights is kind of our center, and we all kind of look at those principles and we agree to those principles, and then all of a sudden that should transcend sexual preference, skin color, and gender, because you're an American. We're kind of we have an agreement on individual freedom and those things, and so in order to keep that together, you have to have some kind of control, I would think, just to make sure that that group of people are all in agreement with those principles. So I don't know what the solution is to that.
For me, and I'm not trying to drag you into political speech. Yeah. I'm not real political, and I certainly don't want to get you in any political hot water. I ask questions to answers that are above my pay grade, and I'm hoping somebody somewhere has got a reasonable solution to things like that, homelessness, all those things that just seem unsolvable right now.
Well, for me, again, you're talking to a storyteller, and so my solution to things like that, or even abortion, which is another huge thing, it's like articulate where you're coming from. Like if you're for open borders, articulate that well. Don't move to doing something shady or being forceful or whatever. And conversely, if you want borders, articulate that well. Like tell your story well and precisely, so that we can have a conversation about it. And abortion is the same thing. If you're pro-choice, articulate that really well. Don't ignore though the arguments over on the pro-life side. Like we have to be able to tell stories that are good, and that articulate your position. If that breaks down, then I'm afraid that people start getting a little bit shady, and that they move to force. When you don't communicate, you basically you give up peaceful options in many ways, and so again, coming from the position of a storyteller, people have got to, and we all are, by the way. See, this is the other thing. Everyone should be developing their ability to articulate their position or their experience. If you stop doing that, and yet you expect people to take your perspective, that's on you. Like, it is a responsibility for us to become great storytellers, everybody,
And white balloons.
Oh, like the spy balloon?
Just give me your rapid fire thoughts on that.
Man, I mean, it's scary to me, as a military guy, the fact that it traversed the entire country. I don't understand it. But again, I do have deep worries about our constitutional republic, because it is so new, it's so revolutionary in the history of man. Remember, we're surrounded to this day by monarchies still. Like there's kings and queens, and there's royal families. Mm-hmm. They're very serious about this. They're not giving up their names. They're not giving up their titles.
Right.
So as much as the way people talk about equity, no one's given up those titles. And here we are, this young country that believes in individual freedom and has a separation of powers and had done all these revolutionary things in government. And I worry that people don't understand how exciting that is, and how new that is, and how important that is. And so, I don't want to see any more balloons, unless they're like party balloons.
Right.
Without equipment strapped to them.
What do you consider to be your greatest acting achievement to date?
I did a show called Sleuth. It's a play. It's a 2-man play. I did this at Santa Monica College long ago. It was like, 70, 80 pages. And it was just me and another guy on stage. And I played an older man, so I grew a beard. I grayed it out. And I had a little bit of an accent, I was impotent in this particular play. And
geez, you're so good.
No,
just that right there.
And this man, in this he was the lover of my wife, and he was a young, good-looking man, and I was this impotent old man. And so I'm on stage, and I remember this one night I get a gun with blanks in it, and I shoot him. And I thought to myself, my God, what happens if this gun doesn't fire? So I had them put a spare gun on the stage at the last minute. And we did a couple of shows. And then one show, I pulled the gun out. Click, click. It didn't fire. And I remember thinking, and I said this, I go, don't worry, I have a spare. And I reached into the other box where the spare gun was, crack, it had shot. And to me, that'll be the greatest.
Far out.
You know, because it was either an intuition or it was some weird thing I had. Because, you know, you're there and there's 300 people looking at you. It was great. So
That was great.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, though, what do you think about this Rust movie and Alec Baldwin? And
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
you've been on the front lines of major sets. Like,
Yeah.
it is crazy. What's your thoughts on that?
Man,
You think Alec Baldwin is liable here?
man, I wouldn't say it's way above my pay grade. Because I don't know the details of it.
Right.
I mean, I do know it's a wake up call for everybody in the industry.
Yeah.
Because, you know, stunt people in particular, they get hurt all the time because what they do is dangerous. And oftentimes they're making stuff up in a sense. They have protocols and they're strict. But like you're kind of winging it, you know, or people are really tired at the end of the day or just something happens, you know. And for me, when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, I got to make sure I check my weapons whenever I have one.
Yeah.
Right. And so I didn't really, you know, I didn't really go after him in a sense that, you know, like that's a legal question and you need all the details for that.
Yeah.
For me, though, it was like, shit, I never thought that could happen. But I guess that's possible.
Yeah.
You know, look at The Crow with Bruce Lee's son, right?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Tell me about a particularly challenging role that you've had to play. Was more difficult than the others.
Okay, I did. This is another theater role. This was a show I did called Letters Home out of Chicago. I went on the national tour, so we toured all over. And you would face the audience and you would recite a monologue, basically a letter that a soldier had written home. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great, you know. I had been in front of audiences before, like several hundred people or more, you know. I didn't realize that this tour, we were going to auditoriums with like thousands of people. They would bus in students by the busload. And then you'd be standing on stage and you'd look up and there'd be walls, thousands of people. And you're monologuing, so you're not looking at another actor. You're looking at them.
Wow.
And I kept thinking, what if I forgot my lines? Like every once in a while, you're like, what if I just forgot my... It's like kind of like when you're standing on the edge of a cliff and you're like, what if I jumped? What if I just fell off the... You know, when you're up there on stage, you're like, what if I just forgot my lines? And so I had a couple moments of like real terror on that, but just because of the wall of people, and it's live. There's no taking it back. And people are queuing off of me, other actors. So like I can't make it up either. So yeah, that was an interesting one psychologically.
What's a dream scenario for you to play?
A dream scene.
Either a dream part or a dream pairing with another actor.
I would like to, because of my look and the way I think that a lot of people struggle psychologically and spiritually. Like I do think we're searching for something, you know. You hear a lot about special forces guys coming back and becoming religious. Like, you know what I mean? Because they're looking for redemption or they've seen evil and now they're looking for the opposite. Like I think there's a lot of that happening and I don't see a lot of it portrayed. The Joker is the perfect example. The Joker is having an existential crisis. He just decides to become a demon. He becomes a devil. That's the extreme story. And again, the opposite extreme is that men become saints. They choose to become saints. It would be great to see more of that so that we have a story showing a path that's not destructive. So,
What do you do to stay in shape, stay fit for your roles?
go to the gym. I have to. And it's funny. I'm not a big gym. Like I'm not a big gym guy in a sense that like I have like I have to look good kind of thing. Like there's so many times I go to the gym, and the only reason I'm going to the gym is because I know I'm probably going to have an audition soon, and I don't want it because I see myself on camera, or they're like, ex-Navy SEAL, or I've had like Delta Force guys, and and you can't play those guys unless you're in good shape.
Sure.
And so it's the greatest motivation to get me to go to. Maybe I don't eat a whole pizza, maybe I don't drink a bunch of beer, so I just try to regulate my food, and I try to get in the gym regularly.
Now, I know when we were neighbors, you were doing a lot of plant-based stuff. Are you still on that path, or you do a lot of meat?
Well, I do some meat. I mean, I have been drinking at least 1 or 2 shakes a day of pea protein, of plant-based protein, and I do have a big salad. Look, there's no doubt in my mind. I was raw vegan for a year. I lost like 30 pounds. There's no doubt in my mind as I get older that I need to lessen my consumption. I think everybody should that's an objective truth that we should all, especially guys, we should not be big when we were over 40, 45 years old.
You're right.
We should be getting smaller because our bodies just will work. They won't work so hard. And so I definitely focused on consuming less and less, which means I'm probably 215 now. I should probably be 190, really 185 maybe. And that's really where I want to go as I get older. I want to get smaller, so, and diet will play a big role in that.
Now, that's just strictly for longevity.
Yeah, well,
because you look about this picture of health as it gets.
Well, it's for longevity, and I think all the data points toward it. All the longevity studies where they spend millions and millions of dollars, basically fasting, low consumption, was the central thing that led to longevity, was consuming less. And so one thing I tell my son too, I say, hey, when you hear something or like you arrive at something that seems to be true, then it should just remain true. And then all your bullshit that tries to get away from that, you just have to be like, I'm just trying to find a way not to do that, but it's true. And so for me, that's where I'm at. There's no doubt in my mind that I have to get smaller and consume less as I get older. I'm over 50 now, so I have to. It's the time's now. I don't have any time anymore to play around with that.
So, if your career ended today, who would you have to thank?
Who would I have to thank
for, helping you out on this journey?
Yeah, my son Roman. He's a huge source of motivation for me. I would shoot auditions up in his bedroom. He would run the camera when he was a toddler, basically, So, and Anya, I have a really great girlfriend now too, Halea, who's supportive, and my friends. I have friends here in town: Lindsay Aliff, Matt Burke, Mandy Hughes, all actors, all local, and they've been instrumental with my acting career because, generally we drop everything to go shoot auditions for each other, and they're professional actors. So they're reading they're reading the sides with me, and they elicit great performances. Mandy has been a part of some of my larger roles, and so those people, you can't do something like this without a good group of friends. And anyone that's thinking about becoming an actor, you need to go find friends that are great actors and are pursuing the business professionally, and you need to form an alliance with them because you'll need them. You'll need them to shoot auditions. You'll need them to read with you, to go over certain roles. You're going to need them. And so anyone that asks me about, like, where should I start? It's like,
that was actually going to be my next question.
Get in a great class. There's some here. Matt Burke, I know, teaches a class. And then get in a really good class with good people, and then forge those relationships. Yeah. And believe me, you'll be way ahead of the game. You'll find a good headshot photographer with them. You'll be able to shoot each other's auditions. They won't allow you to do crap. Like they'll give you notes when you perform stuff. That's the fastest way to get put right in a real professional acting scenario, you know.
Do you have any special tricks or things that you do to challenge yourself as an actor to become better? Any cool things you do at home to sharpen your sword?
I work at a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
I work with folks with autism and traumatic brain injury, and I work about 40 hours a week now. I work a lot. So I think that's really helpful. I'm always in a position of listening and reacting. I'm watching. I'm empathetic, right? It's part of my job. That is what an actor has to do. If you want to be a great actor, you have to love people, and you have to love watching them, observing them, communicating with them. Empathy is important because when you play a character, whether they're a good person or a bad person, you have to find somewhere that you love that person, or that, because, you know, most, even a bad person, like they don't just totally hate themselves. You know, they're functioning with whatever dysfunction they have. So you have to learn how to look at people that way, and that will allow you to take on those characters. You know, because in life we play characters. Like you have a character you play, like, you know, and you wake up and you chose your costume today, your clothing. It's so, as an actor, you have to understand that you'll have this kind of day-to-day character, the business character, but then you also have to be flexible enough to, and not be attached so much to that normal character you play that you can let it go when you are asked to play something else. And there's a certain fluidity there, and we all have that, by the way. It's just that some of us don't have to do it for work. And so you get more and more comfortable with this character you play in life. Actors just have to be ready to let go of that to do something else, you know? So
Yeah.
that's what I would suggest, is like, look at life that way, and then watch what characters people play. So
just a few questions left,
Mhm.
and I'll let you get back to your weekend.
Sure.
If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
That's good. That's a really good question. It's so funny. This is, I heard David Harbour answer this question, and he was like, if you can do anything else, if you can do anything else, you know, if you don't have to act and you can go do something else, go do that. Because acting should really be reserved for people that just can't do anything else. Not that they're not talented enough, but they have some kind of compulsion to be an actor, because you give up so much stability. It's lots of rejection, but I must be getting something out of it, you know, some kind of maybe therapeutic value or whatever. So it's a compulsion. Like, I certainly don't just want attention, because that's not my nature, you know, but so.
Has the rejection gotten easier?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't get any easier. You know, part of it is if you get to a certain skill level and you're like, I prepared, like I did a good job, then you realize it's not about that you weren't good enough. It's that they were looking for something different, or there's politics. Like somebody's, manager has got two other people in the project, and they're like made a deal to get their other person. Like, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So preparation is really important to manage rejection. If you're like screwing up and irresponsible, then rejection will get to you, because it's really a reflection that you're not prepared. So it's really an indictment on you. But if those things are all taken care of, it's part of business, you know.
When you leave this earth,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want them to say about you?
That I consciously chose the character I was playing. That I have no excuses not to know how much choice we have to who we play on this earth. Like, how we behave, the choices we make day to day. These are character choices, and I know I can make those in a production, and I can become a really bad guy, or I can become a really good guy. I can do that within a movie or a TV show, but that's exactly the same thing in life. We are totally conscious of those choices we're making and the character we're playing. And I want to get, I don't want to, again, it's one of those objective truths. So if I'm making choices that make me an asshole, you know, or make me a bad person, I'm going to own that, because I know that that's my particular choice. It's my character. So, yeah, I'd like to leave this earth having played a great character, good character, made the world a better place.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, man, I really, really appreciate your time. Tell our audience where they can find you, where they can check out all your stuff. I guess IMDb.
IMDb, yeah, David A. MacDonald. And then IMDb will have some clips, some video clips. And
Yeah, we're used to having, you know, bands and
Yeah.
different bookable talent on here that's booked by the masses. You're just booked by agents. So
Yeah.
any agents watching this, look him up. He's one of the good ones for sure.
Right.
So thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me, Corey. This is great.
Tell Roman I said hello, and we'll get started on some music stuff here soon with him.
Yeah, he's
Excited to get our boys together to play some tunes. So,
Awesome.
All right, I'm Corey Short. This is Dave MacDonald. This is Cosmic Koolaid, episode 13. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Hey y'all, I'm Dunbar with Instant Karma Asheville. We are a one-stop hippie shop and a true Asheville experience. Oh, and we have 3D tapestries. You gotta check this out. See what I'm saying? Every 3D tapestry comes with a free pair of 3D glasses. It's amazing. We've got grassroots hats, belly dancing gear, and we have beautiful dream catchers for catching all those dreams that you don't want to have. We have locally made Asheville soap. It's delicious. You're gonna want some for you and your mom. Those would be incense matches. They're really great for the bathroom. Yeah. We have great pipes too. And we have yoga mats. They're really beautiful and soft, and they really help you to just calm down. We sell dragon eye journals and pendants. All sorts of beautifully made local stuff. We have two locations, one in West Asheville on Haywood Road, and the other one is downtown on North Lexington Avenue. Make sure you check out our online store at instantkarmaasheville.com. And I can say we are the place you want to be.